Hi there everyone, welcome back to Infinity Drones. Today I've got some extremely exciting news for you guys, and this relates to the Air 2 and the Air 2S and possibly a whole host of DJI drone support in the future. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay guys, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to navigate to the dronehacks.com website and we're going to jump over to the bird map. This is one of the most important things that you guys must always do. Now remember, you have a drone and you have want to maybe remove the no-fly zones or the altitude limits or something like that, and for that to be able to be possible, you would need to be on a specific firmware version. So let's just jump over to, let's say, the Air 2 for example. If you take a look at it, there's a bunch of firmware versions available, but the recommended one is this one. Now I can almost guarantee that most of you guys would have already been prompted to upgrade past this version, and then if you were maybe on the latest version, you would be able to downgrade to the recommended version using the Dronehacks application, meaning that you can get all of the mods again. However, if you do go up to a later version, let's say the latest version, and now there's even a more recent version than this, it would block you from downgrading to the recommended version. So that means all of the guys with the latest firmware version would have been locked out. Now a good example would be that the DJI Fly app updated and automatically prompts you to install an update. And in some cases it even forces you to do an upgrade and you can't even take off because of that. Now with that said, the new Dronehacks version is going to resolve that. Now let's just take a look at what options we've got. So if I am on the correct version, I can remove the no-fly zones as well as the altitude limits, and I can improve my signal if you're outside of the US. For instance, FCC power gives you about, in most cases, 40 to 100% increase in range. Don't quote me on that, it really is area dependent, but it is significantly better than CE mode. Okay, with this said, you need to purchase a Dronehacks license. So in this case, you're going to have to click on the buy regular license option, and a little pop-up is going to appear on the far right side, and you're going to have to proceed through the whole process. So just click to proceed to checkout, and then you can create an account. If you do not have an account, I really recommend creating one. You can create one with any Gmail account. Do not worry about it having to save the passwords and stuff like that. You're literally only going to use it for your Dronehacks application, but in my case I already have my own Dronehacks account that I've got. If you do not fill in all the details, click continue, and then you can proceed with purchase. Now you can purchase with a credit card, with PayPal, all of those things, but you have to purchase a license. Now once you've purchased a license, that is where you're going to download the Dronehacks application. So I'm going to click back to the Dronehacks application. I'm going to go to the download page and I am going to select DJI, and I'm going to scroll down, and you can see that my current version that I can download is version 1.29. Now this is the current version that is public, but there is a new version coming out soon, and that is going to be the beta version over here that you guys can see. So version 1.31 is going to go public pretty soon, and once you've downloaded that, you can double click it. And then once you've opened the application, your login details will present itself, or you can log in. So once you've opened the application, you can put in your details and you can then effectively just log into your Dronehacks application. Just give it some time. As you guys can see, mine is going to log itself in automatically. But what you can do is you can start to turn on your drone. So connect your drone via USB cable to your computer and power it on. As you guys can see in the background, I'm now powering on my drone, which is an Air 2. As you can see, it's now popped up. Okay, so as you guys can see, my device is the Mavic Air 2. I'm on the latest firmware version, and I'm just going to jump back before I click OK over here. So if I click over here and I go to my bird map, you guys are going to see that that firmware version is not even listed here yet. Okay, so it's newer than that. The latest one was on the bird map was 09220, and the one I've got on here is the latest version, meaning that I am unable to do anything. I can't downgrade, I can't do anything. However, I've just purchased a Dronehacks license, and I'm going to link this. As you can see, if your Dronehacks application detects that your drone does not have a license, it's going to prompt you to link an unused license to that one. So if you purchased 2 licenses, for instance, then you can link one of them to your drone, and if you plug that drone in again, it's not going to prompt you to register again, but you will still have that extra license in your account. Now in this case, I'm going to click register regular license to my drone. There we go, my drone is now linked. And now what it's going to do is automatically going to go to the hacking tab, and it's going to check what I can do. Now take a look here. It says downgrade available. Please use flashing section to downgrade the firmware version. And then there's a little option here to how to downgrade. So if I click on that, it says, whoops, pops up, and it's automatically going to take me to my downgrade tutorial. So in this case, you can go and download and install DJI Assistant 2 for consumer drones, and you need to download the driver package. Now, in this case, I have already installed, most of you guys would already have DJI Assistant for consumer drones on your machine, but if you don't, download it over here and you can install it. Next, you're going to download the package, the driver package, the Dronehack driver, and we are going to download whatever firmware version we need, the special firmware. This is extremely important. These special firmware versions for the Air 2 or the Air 2S is what we're going to use to downgrade to the required firmware version that we need. So in my case, I'm just going to quickly check. I've already got DJI Assistant 2 for consumer drones installed, but I'm going to quickly run the driver for this Dronehacks application. Remember, it shows clearly that we need to download that file. Close this. So I already have this on my machine. I'm going to install this driver now, as you guys can see, and we're just literally going to leave it there until it's finished installing. So just give it a second. I'm most likely going to forward this bit. Okay, as you guys can see, the driver is now finished installing. It physically just disappears, so don't worry about that. And then we can go back to our Dronehacks application, and we can now jump over to the Flash original DJI firmware. Now, before we do this, I need to just go back to the Dronehacks application or website and stress something that you guys must know. Okay, so let me just go back here. Go to the bird map. And make sure, now remember, check what firmware version you are on. On my Air 2S, I am on the latest version. But if you were on this version or earlier, then you do not follow this step. You simply just purchase the voucher, the right license, and you go to the Dronehacks application and you follow all of the other videos that I've made on my channel. You can check out Dronehacks 1.29, 1.27, 1.26. All of them will have the steps that you need. This is specific for those of you guys that have upgraded too far. If you are on the latest firmware version and you cannot downgrade anymore, this video is for you. Okay, but if you are maybe on an early version that can downgrade, you can upgrade to the latest version and just follow the step as well. That's also something you guys can do, but then you're adding an extra step. In this case, what we are doing, we are going to downgrade to the correct version using this path. So I'm going to click on choose firmware. Wait for my computer to catch up. I'm going to navigate to the file that I've got downloaded. And as you guys can see, here are the files. Now remember, we can download it from the link on the how-to page. Okay, so in this case, I have already downloaded the Air 2 Dronehacks file. You can see there WM231. And I'm now going to select that file. I'm going to click open. And I can click flash firmware. Now, as you guys can see here, it's going to tell us that the drone is going to restart quite a few times. Just let it go through. Something that's very important for you guys to know is while this process is going, do not disconnect, do not close the app, just let it be. The drone is going to restart quite a few times. Just let it go through the process. If nothing has happened within 10 minutes, now please take note of this. 10 minutes is what you can use as a benchmark where you can turn stuff off and restart it and then try again. But don't disconnect stuff after a minute or two just because you think something isn't working. In my case, as you guys can see, it's not showing anything on the screen, but I'm essentially waiting for that to happen. Now we can also see on the little log screen at the top here, start flashing firmware is in process, and it is now doing the whole downgrade process. Okay, so we are literally just waiting for the process to complete. Let it be, let it run through, and then we can move on to the next phase. And there you go, guys. As you guys can see, it took on my machine, it took about 8 minutes, or 7 or 8 minutes. So in your case, mine is might vary slightly. The one thing to know is that if you are doing this, keep a look on your drone. Just take a look at it, and you'll notice that the rear LED lights of your drone will flash yellow very quickly. If it's flashing yellow really quickly, it means that it's busy writing the firmware, meaning that you are still in the process, and you'll see your drone restart quite a few times and go through the process. But if the lights flash yellow very quickly on the rear, it means it's still flashing. In this case, you guys can see it says drone upgrade successful. My rear lights are still flashing really quickly because we are in firmware mode. But as you guys can see, I have now the options to do what I need to. You can even take a look that my firmware version is now the correct firmware version. So I've just clicked OK. My drone's going to quickly properly restart and reconnect to the system. You can see it's going to load the exploits. And my firmware version is now on the correct version. I can now proceed to unlock my drone. So the first thing I want to do is I want to enable FCC because I want that better signal. It's not for better range. Yes, you will get better range, but for me, it's a lot more about safety. The better signal I have back to my drone, the more safe I will be able to be. So in this case, simple. You can see it's going to restart quite a few times. And if you do get this error, do not worry about it. Simply disconnect or restart your drone because I haven't touched my drone yet, and you're going to see this error. So in this case, I'm going to click OK. I'm going to turn my drone off. Just give it a second. And start it back up again. Don't worry about this error you're going to see over here as well. I've just turned my drone off. Obviously, the system's not going to find it. So if you want to, just to be safe, you can click OK. You can close the Dronehacks application while the drone is popping up. And you can just reopen the Dronehacks application. I sometimes do this. There's no real need for it. But if you do experience some issues, this resolves it 99% of the time. So waiting for the Dronehacks application to start. We already know my drone is started up. You can hear it in the background. It's automatically logged in. And you can see that my firmware is on the correct version. I can now jump over to the hacking tab, as you guys can see over there. And there we go. So let me click on FCC mode. It will reboot a few times, click OK. And I'm simply going to wait again. Now, this is the exact same process, so easy. You physically just wait for the drone to restart 3 or 4 times and wait for FCC mode to be enabled. So I'm probably going to forward this bit again as well. So let's just wait until it gets done. And I'll let you know when we move on to the next phase. And there you go. You guys can see that I've didn't touch my machine at all, and it's gone through the whole process, and it clearly tells you never update your firmware again. If you update your firmware, it will remove everything. That's also something, if you guys want to go back to stock and remove all of the mods, simply upgrade your firmware. It's as simple and easy as that. Or you can come back to the application and simply just click remove or stock mode or undo the hack. But if you update the firmware, you will lose the mod. Now we know with the latest mod or a Dronehacks update, you can downgrade again and you can simply do the hacks again, but we don't know what DJI is going to do in the future. DJI might release another update that blocks the mods again. So in my case, my advice would always be never update unless absolutely necessary. Like, don't update the app, don't update the firmware unless you have no other choice. Okay, in my opinion, you should only ever upgrade the firmware if there's a feature that you really do need, or if it's blocking you and you are not allowed to do anything anymore. So in my opinion, this is very important. Never update the firmware unless absolutely necessary, because it will remove the mod that you've paid for from your drone. Remember, the license is linked to your drone serial number. So if you update the firmware, you could lose the mod on that specific drone. Anyways, let's click OK. Perfect. Okay, as you guys can see, signal strength has now been applied. My drone's going to go through the whole restart process again. Actually, it has not restarted yet. It's just disconnecting and reconnecting the Dronehacks application. And I'm going to just wait for the hacking page to populate again. And I want to remove the no-fly zones as well as remove my altitude limit. So let's just give it a second so it loads all of it. And here we go. I'm going to click on hack. Pops up again. Please guys, laws and regulations is very, very important here. I'm not saying do something stupid like flying at airports. However, let's think about it. You are in an area where you just like to fly inside your house, for instance, or take a picture of your roof, for instance. You're not doing anything remotely dangerous, then you are at least able to do it. Also, there are tons of no-fly zones that are just, it's not no-fly zones. It doesn't even remotely relate to the laws in your country. So in many cases you can do this. For instance, if you are doing roof inspections, then at least this enables you to still do your job where otherwise you would have had to file in paperwork and stuff like that. Okay, also if you are in countries, for instance, where they block you, then please use this at your own risk. In this case, I want to continue because if I want to fly in mountains, maybe go check a tower and see if there's power on top of the tower, instead of having to drive all the way up to the tower, I can use the drone to go over 500 meters. But once again, always be safe. Same process as with the FCC mod, as you guys can see. And let's just wait. Once again, here we are done. As you guys can see, we have now loaded the certificate on our drone. Never update your firmware, otherwise you will lose the mod. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn on my controller. Let's take a look at the drone itself. So as you guys can see, my DJI Fly app is now open. I can click on Go Fly on the bottom right. And I'm going to tap on the top left 3 dots. And I'm going to go over to the transmission tab. Now the first thing I want to do is I want to go check if my FCC mode has been enabled. And as you guys can see, that little line on the 90 dB line, because I'm running Android, is now below the 1 kilometer line. Now, if you need more information, you can go to the Dronehacks application website. But as you can see, my FCC mode has now been enabled, which is fantastic. Now I can go over to my safety tab, and if I scroll down, you guys are going to see that I still have my max distance, I still have my max altitude. They're all still going to be there. That's 100% normal. The app is always going to do the normal thing. I can even go and set my return to home wherever I want to. But the biggest thing here is if I go to unlock GeoZone, you're going to see that my account that I've got here doesn't show anything. But if I switch over to aircraft unlocking licenses, you can see that my Dronehacks license is active until 2030. So in essence, I can fly anywhere until 2030. So this is how you know if your no-fly zone altitude limits has been unlocked and is done properly. And you can go through to the transmission tab and check if your line is underneath the 1 kilometer line if you are an Android user. If you are, let me just jump over to the Dronehacks website. If you are an Apple user, you can just click on the Hacks tab. There's going to be a signal hacking drop-down option for you to choose from. You can just scroll down and you'll see that if you are an iOS user, if you're in FCC mode, your line would be above the -90 dB line. And if you are in CE mode, it would be below or equal to the 90 dB line. And there you go, guys. You have now unlocked your drone. You have removed the no-fly zones. You have enabled FCC. Your drone is now perfect. Okay, so without further ado, guys, I'll catch you guys in the next one.